All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide toll-free 800-610-7035. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com on all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV, and our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com, where you can listen to the X-Zone Radio Show 7/24/365. Before we get to my next guest, our good friend Jeff Danelek, I would just like to send our condolences from everyone here at rel-mar McConnell Media Company, all our subsidiaries, and all our affiliates and all our listeners, to the family of Corporal Nathan Cirillo, who lived here in Hamilton. His family is still here in Hamilton. So to the family of Nathan, his friends, and all the other members of the Canadian Armed Forces here in Hamilton, our deepest condolences in your loss. And Nathan and family, you'll always be in our prayers. My guest this hour is Jeff Danelek. I've had the pleasure of having Jeff on the show many times. He's been a graphic artist for over 20 years, a paranormal researcher, writer for the last 5. Jeff enjoys exploring his subjects from an objective scientific perspective. Jeff is the author of Reconsidering Atlantis, a new look at a prehistoric civilization, The Mystery of Reincarnation, and The Case for Ghosts, an objective look at the paranormal. He also has written for Fate magazine and is currently pursuing a career as a novelist. Besides writing, his hobbies include science and Fortean subjects such as Bigfoot, UFOs, and things that go bump in the night. His website is www.ourcuriousworld.com, and you can like him on Facebook at Facebook. No, wait a minute. That's our website. Sorry about that. Tried to slip it in, but nah, I decided not to. Jeff Danelek, old friend, how are you doing, buddy?
I am doing just superb, sir. Thank you.
It's October, Halloween. What do you do for Halloween, Jeff?
Yeah. Well, this year I'm going to dress up like an accountant. I find that scares a lot of people.
Yeah, scares me.
I don't do much.
No.
I just my son just got married. I have a new granddaughter, 6 years old, so I'm going to have her come over and see how and have some time with her, I think.
Well, congratulations. 6-year-old granddaughter. Let's see, my youngest is 4 months old. I don't think Wyatt would like to come over and spend time with Grandpa dishing out candies. And the other kids, they're too busy going out collecting candies. But you know what the worst part about not having any kids living at home is?
You don't get to finish off the candy for them?
You got it. You got it. You don't have the right, the privilege, the ability to tell them to pour all their candy on the kitchen table, and you go through it and you say, well, that's no good for you because you like it. That's no good for you because you like it. And, you know, you leave them with the Rice Krispie snacks that are all properly sealed. And, you know, they look at you with those baby eyes with those tears welling up in the corner, and you feel guilty, and you look at the candy that you've taken from them, and you're looking at the good stuff that you left for them, and you say to them, I'm doing this for your own good.
That's right. You're protecting them.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right. Those
beautiful.
I
was never guilty more than just about 40 seconds.
Really? Yeah, well, I
don't know.
40 seconds, wow.
That's about my guilt length, yeah. I'm okay with it now.
Good. So, do you decorate the house? Do you decorate the outside of the house? Do you put a pumpkin outside? Let the kids know.
I do carve a pumpkin.
Yeah.
I do that because I like to keep my artistic flair and stuff like. And we have a little competition. My son and I, we see who can have the cooler pumpkin.
Right.
Of course, he loses because he's an amateur. What can you say?
What can you say? Yeah.
But no, it's really actually pretty quiet around here on Halloween. You'd be surprised that a good night we might get three or four kids.
That's it.
So it really is kind of dead. When I was a kid, you'd have 60 kids show up. Now it's like they just don't come around anymore.
My gosh.
It might be the danger Ebola sign I have in the front yard, but
that might have something to do with it, Jeff. Mind you, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, well, I didn't put a lot of thought into it, I have to admit, in retrospect. So I'll have to change that.
Wow. All right, Jeff, stand by. You and I have to take a commercial break. We will be back shortly. Exonation, Jeff Danelek is our special guest. His website is www.ourcuriousworld.com. That's www.ourcuriousworld.com. And Jeff and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't forget you can listen to the X Zone radio show 24/7, 365 at www.xzoneradiotv.com. Jeff and I will be back on the other side of this 2-minute break. Don't go away. You were a pumpkin.
I was a pumpkin, a big orange pumpkin.
A big orange pumpkin. And were there a lot of children out there?
Not so much.
No? Did you get a lot of candy?
Yeah, I got a lot of candy. Mommy's eating all the chocolate bars.
Well, tell Mommy that's your candy, honey.
Okay.
Tell her.
Stop eating all my chocolate bars, Mommy. Daddy's sick.
Welcome back, everyone. That was Baby Foofy telling me, her daddy, that her mommy was eating her chocolates on her. Poor little one went outside dressed as a pumpkin and going door to door. And what does Laura do when she comes back with the candy? Eats it. Well, Baby Foofy took care of that. Exonation, Jeff Danelek's our special guest, and Jeff's been with us for a number of years now, Jeff. And you've written some great books. You really have. In fact, I don't know one book that I haven't thoroughly enjoyed reading that you've written. But this is Halloween, and so let's talk about ghosts, for example. Are ghosts real?
Well, I mean, it's obviously a matter of opinion, but I think they are. I mean, the evidence to me seems to support that there is a genuine paranormal phenomenon going on there that can't be explained away easily. So yeah, I think that they are real. I really do.
What is the evidence that you believe?
Well, I think some of the most compelling is, to me, the physical or the photographs. I have a website, Our Curious World, and people send me ghost pictures quite often. Sometimes 2 or 3, 4 times a week, wanting to know if this is a ghost. And most of it's not. Most of it's easily explained away as a photo anomaly or some kind of a hoax. But I have a collection on my site of a bunch of pictures, probably about a dozen or two, that are really compelling that I can't explain away. And between those and the more historically known photos, the better ones out there, I just think that the evidence for the paranormal, for the consciousness existing after death, is pretty compelling.
Well, do the ghosts that really exist, based on the compelling evidence that you've seen, are they like the ghosts in the movies? Are they nasty? Are they demonic? Are they anything but those of us who have passed?
I think it really depends a little bit on the person themselves who passed. If they were an angry, vengeful person, those characteristics might pass over to the other side to some degree. However, I think that most ghosts are very passive, often are just as afraid of us as we are of them, and are not a threat. So the Hollywood idea of a ghost, to me, does a real disservice, I think, to real ghosts, if you don't, if you will.
Yeah.
And it just scares people unnecessarily. But I guess that's part of the whole mystique.
Yeah, but you said are afraid of us. Now, by saying that, aren't we saying that the ghosts are a living consciousness, that they are able to interact with us?
Absolutely. I think that when we pass, we go through a period where we readjust from the physical into the spiritual realm. And some people get stuck in that adjustment phase, and they never pass all the way through and move on to the next realm. They kind of have one foot in the physical and one foot in the spiritual realm. And I think when they're stuck like that, they are aware of us. I think they can interact with us. I don't know if they perceive time the same way we do. I think that they may not know what year it is, or know what day it is, or anything like that. But I do believe that they do often attempt to communicate with us and interact with us for a lot of different reasons. Some of them benevolent, and maybe some of them mischievous.
So, I'm trying to best ask you this question. So, when it comes to ghosts, if ghosts are real, how do they exist? Especially if they can communicate with us, and they're thought to be have a consciousness, have the ability to think, communicate, rationalize, to be afraid of us.
Well, I had this conversation today with a coworker.
Okay.
What happens when we die,
Right.
and the way I explained it, and the way I understand it, is that our brain is not a transmitter of consciousness; it's a receiver. And I believe consciousness is part of the universal constants. It's like radio waves or TV signals. They're always out there.
Yeah.
And when you need some kind of a receiver in order to bring that picture into your home. And I think the same thing happens with consciousness. Our brain is actually picking up on this universal consciousness and forming a particular individualization of it that is shaped by our personality, our past, our experiences. So when we die, that clump of consciousness, if you will, remains intact for a time, and as such is still capable of seeing and hearing and being aware. It's capable of movement, capable of being in one place at one time and another place at another time, until it eventually sort of fades over time, anywhere from maybe a few months to a few years to a few decades.
Is there a known case, a recently known case, and I'm not talking about Charles Dickens' A Christmas Story, where people have actually conducted conversations with ghosts?
Well, yeah, actually, there's a number of professional paranormal investigators who have used a variety of equipment to interact with ghosts. Mostly it has to do with maybe EM meters, or really flashlights, set to where they just are barely off, and an entity can make them come back on. And I've seen some dramatic results from that, where they would ask yes and no questions, and the entity would respond by turning on a particular flashlight. And I think that's so. There are ways to communicate with it. The problem is that a lot of people don't really ask very good questions when they get a ghost to do that. They say, did you used to live here? Are you a man or a woman? That kind of a thing. They never really say, are you aware of what year it is? They never really ask him, those kinds of, to me, really more interesting questions that I would want to ask somebody who was on the other side. But yeah, I have seen some amazing things that they have done with electronic equipment and stuff to get the ghost to respond to them.
Such as?
Well, like I said, the flashlights, the EM meters.
Oh, I see.
It seems that ghosts are able to interact with electrical devices more so than just sort of appear in a seance. We always think of the traditional seance, if you're here, make this candelabra fly through the air, that kind of thing. I think that's less common. I think there are sensitives out there who can pick up on that, But in terms of actual communication, it seems like electronic devices are becoming the way to go, and I think that's going to be the way of the future.
With the turning on and off of lights, the making the EMF meter move, even when it comes to EVP, could it be possible that what these mechanisms are picking up are actually the thought waves of the person who is actually there and wanting this information so much that they're actually able to use a force like telekinesis in order to make these things happen?
Well, if you think about it for a second, to explain it away as telekinesis is just using one mystery to explain another. Because, telekinesis would be an amazing paranormal power if we really had that.
Yeah.
So I suppose that's possible that the person who's operating the equipment could influence it.
Right.
However, I would think if that were the case, they should be able to do it outside of a haunted locale.
But do they really try outside of a haunted locale? Because maybe it's the atmosphere and the hype and the psychological drama that's involved in the haunted location that is part of the formula for making this happen.
I guess that's entirely possible. However, I think that the better investigators out there are very objective and even skeptical. And if they can get a response out of something, a lot of times they'll try to see if they can replicate it outside of those conditions. There are those ghost hunters who just want to believe everything is part of the is paranormal. But then you also have those. I have a good friend here in Denver who is a paranormal investigator. He's one of the most skeptical people I've ever met. He doesn't believe anything. I'll send him pictures and stuff, and he says, "No, that's just this and that's just that." For him to believe something is really difficult, but he does believe in ghosts, even though he spends most of his time explaining away mostly everything he's presented with.
Why does he believe in ghosts?
Those are the kind of people.
But why does he believe in them?
Well, because he's had experiences. He's had encounters with paranormal energies.
I see.
He was slapped across the face one time by one, things like that. I think a lot of these people who get into this field are doing it because they want to confirm to themselves that there's an afterlife. So it's kind of their own little quest. And it's kind of like the Houdini effect, where you try to disprove everything, and those things that you can't disprove is the evidence.
But the Houdini effect is only valid if you have an expertise in all fields that may apply to that of which you are trying to disprove.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I mean, you're limited in what you can prove or disprove.
Yeah.
You're never going to really be able to cover all the bases. But this gentleman not only has a real skepticism and a scientific mind, but he also is a photograph expert and a photography expert, and he's a tech expert. So he understands all the different aspects of things and how they can go wrong, what they can look like. So he's not going to be perfect, but he's closer, I think, than a lot of cell-style ghost hunters out there are.
Or wannabe ghost hunters. I call them.
And that's the problem. Wannabe.
You see, I call them ghost groupies. You and I have to take a commercial break, my friend. Please stand by. Exonation Jeff Danelek's our guest. www.ourcuriousworld.com. That's www.ourcuriousworld.com. And Jeff and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. You can always listen to the X Zone 24/7, 365 at www.xzoneradiotv.com or on your phone at area code 213-401-0080, and toll charges may apply. We'll be back. Don't go away.
I'm Rob McConnell, and welcome to the X Zone, a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Today on the X Zone, the Celtic after death. Many ancient European cultures believed that the human souls could transmigrate into animals, birds, and plants as well as into other men and women. Celtic peoples held that the immortal soul passed from body to body for all eternity. Irish warriors had no fear of death, for they knew that if they were struck down in battle, it was only the end of one of their many lives. The Celts were so sure of living again that they would even lend money on the promise of assured repayment in a future life.
Welcome back, everyone. Jeff Danelek is our special guest to this hour, www.ourcuriousworld.com. You know, Jeff, over the years I've had the opportunity of speaking to many people who claim to have been ghost hunters, ghost busters, ghost researchers, ghost detectives, and a lot of them just pick this up as a hobby because it's the cool thing to do. You know, and you saw this really happening after the Ghostbuster movies. How does anybody tell who is a credible ghost researcher from the typical yahoos that are out there going around and claiming that everything they see is an orb, everything they see is a shadow, and everything that they don't see is a ghost?
Well, actually, you kind of answered your own question there.
Oh.
Because if they go around with that attitude, that's a pretty good indicator that they're just in it as a hobby. They're not serious ghost hunters. Because the real ghost hunters that I have encountered, as soon as something happens, they're immediately trying to disprove it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get someone like that, then that's a pretty good indicator that they're probably the real McCoy. But there are a lot of people out there who, you're right, it's a hobby to them. And they enjoy it, and I guess it's fairly harmless, but it still takes away, I think, from the credibility of the entire field when you kind of treat it as a joke like that.
Yeah. You see, I believe that the real ghost researchers are truly historians because they keep history alive. They do a lot of research on the property, on the people. They go into the neighborhood, find out what the neighbors know about the area. They do it with a professional flair. They do it seriously. They don't wear these weird T-shirts and wear these bunky hats and go around professing to solve any ghost history like so many people on the internet do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's really no controls over it. So really anything goes when it comes to this.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way of really controlling it. But you can't take away from that 150 years of research that goes back a long time that really does demonstrate a lot of these. There's some validity to a lot of these things. And that's what you kind of hold on to and just hope that somebody somewhere gets lucky enough to find something definitive that even science will take seriously.
You know, I went on a couple of ghost tours at what is it, Fort George in Niagara Falls, in Niagara on the Lake, I should say. And people are walking through the fort in the dead of night, and people are saying, "Oh, did you see that? Oh, did you see that? Do you hear that?" And I'm saying, "No." I'm on my merry way. Oh, look at that light in the window. Can you see it? No. So, after 2 times doing this, I decided, well, something's not right here. Something's really not right here. Is it me or is it them? So being the person I am, of course, I said there must be something wrong with them. So I did a lot of research into the fort through Parks Canada. And maybe you can just help me understand something. If a fort is haunted, okay, would that haunting go if a new fort was built somewhere else? Or would the haunting stay at the original site of the original fort?
Well, my understanding, and from what I've found in researching this, is that ghosts are tied to particular physical locations.
Right.
So if you change the location, a lot of times they will move on. They'll just go away because it's not what they're familiar with. And so if you were to destroy the fort and build a new one, I suspect that it would clear the slate, so
Right.
to speak, and you'd start from scratch with all new ghosts, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think that they move on.
Okay, why I asked you that was because during my research, I found out that Fort George is not was moved, was basically rebuilt several feet, I think 50 or 60 feet away from the original site where everything was supposed to have happened. So I asked the tour guide about this. I said, is this the original location? Oh, yes, it is. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, and he gives me about a 15-minute speech, and I just happened to go in my pocket and take out the information that I was able to acquire from Archives Canada through Parks Canada. And he said, oh, I didn't know that. So I'm just wondering, and I asked him, I said, well, if this is the real fact, how come people are seeing ghosts that aren't there? And then it turned into a further quest because he could not give me an answer. So I went and talked to a friend of mine who's a psychologist, and he said it's mind over matter, the power of wish. You're told that this place is haunted. If you believe enough, you will manifest what you believe to be there.
Well, that would be a form of telekinesis, would it not?
I don't know. Well, telekinesis, as I understand it, is when you make something move.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's also the ability to manifest physical objects out of nothingness.
But they're not manifesting it. It's only in their mind.
Oh, okay. So they're not actually seeing anything.
No.
They're just except in their imagination.
Exactly.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
The ability, the psychosomatic abilities are astounding. The things you can make yourself do.
Yeah.
And believe.
It's just like where I used to be at CKTB in Hamilton. I'm sorry, in St. Catharines. I heard many reports when I was doing the show there from past employees, DJs, that it was haunted. The studios, which was an old house, beautiful house, that goes back to the time of the Underground Railway. Going back way then, at the end of the Underground Railway, where they'd bring slaves into Canada and where they'd be free. Not once did I ever hear or see anything. And yet, psychics would come in. They'd go all woo woo, Ghostbusters. They'd come in and they'd say, "Oh, look at this, look at that, look at that." So I'm just wondering, is it possible that my inability to understand or to see and hear what these people believe they are seeing and believe they are hearing is because I am somehow blocking this from happening? Or is it because they are overzealous and they are creating something from nothing?
Well, that's a really great question. I think it could be a combination of the two. I think that in many cases people are letting their imagination run wild. I get photographs all the time of just, a bush, and someone swears it's the face of Jesus in the bush, and they,
Right.
And they're just seeing what they want to see, and you can't turn it off that easily. Although I do think that there are people that, if you are closed to the concept of the paranormal, I do believe you can turn that off. I see that with guys like from Skeptical Inquirer, like Joe Nichols and some of these people. They'll go into these haunted locations, and stuff will happen to other people, but nothing will happen to them.
Yeah, Joe's a good friend of mine.
I respect what you're trying to do there, but I don't know. Is there such a thing as being open to experiencing these energies? In the same way there's being open to enjoying an opera or a song,
Right.
or a movie. I mean, if you're closed to it, you're not going to get really anything out of it. But if you open yourself to it, you might. And so maybe there is actually an element of that to consider when you're looking at the paranormal.
It's just like psychic phenomena. Now, the ability to tell the future or talk about events that are happening in the future. Just give me a second. Craig, where's that email that we received? Okay, thanks. Now, going back to September, the date of September the 28th, I received an email from Elizabeth Joyce, who's a regular on the show, and her website is new-visions.com, and this is what she said in her email, and this is September the 28th of this year. Hi, Rob. Just to let you know, the world is on high alert. There is an awesome scandal behind Eric Holder's resignation. They hope this won't come out before the election, but it more likely will. ISIS is expected to hit somewhere in the world between October the 6th and 13th. The rumor is, and she calls her premonitions or her psychic feelings a rumor. The rumor is either the U.S. or Canada, Ottawa. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Here you've got a lady who, on September the 28th, predicted ISIS attacks in Ottawa. And then in her email, she further states also Chicago, New York City, and Los Angeles. Today, there was a terror attack by a lone wolf in New York. So is this the same as someone who can see a ghost, that they have the ability to tune into certain frequencies or certain energies where they can actually see and interact with ghosts? And you have other people like Elizabeth who has the ability to tune in to psychic impressions from the future.
You know, that's a fascinating field of study. I personally believe that there are people who are sensitive to these energies. She could be picking up information from another disembodied intelligence that may have, may be outside of time. I do believe there are spiritual entities that exist that are not part of linear time, and they exist outside of that bubble. So they can actually see into the future, or at least one particular timeline, and they can be remarkably, uncannily accurate. So maybe she's pulling in something like that. Some of it could just be good guessing, because obviously New York, Chicago, and L.A. are the biggest cities in America, so they're most likely to draw. Now, she said, a terrorist attack in Bismarck. Bismarck? Now that would be, or some lesser-known place. That would be, to me, more remarkable. But yeah, I fully expect attacks in those cities myself at some point. So they're not surprising to me. But, like I said, the more specific they are, that makes it more impressive.
Well, I was impressed that she actually hit the one in Ottawa.
That is cool.
Yeah, so to have this in my hand, dated September the 28th, and it happens on the 22nd. All right, she said between the 6th and then the 13th. To me, she was close enough. It's better than hand grenade throwing and playing horseshoes. It's so many things that we have left to discover, but I really think that the people who are just hacking around with this stuff, the phony psychics, the phony ghost hunters, the phony exorcists that are out there, are ruining it for the credible people. And it's just like adding more dirt onto the pile that the serious people will have to shovel off to get exposed, and the people who really want to gain the knowledge will have to clear off to get the right answers.
Well, yeah, that's the same thing I complain about with the UFO community, is that you've had so many people pile on with so many extraordinary claims that the entire field has lost credibility. Nobody takes it seriously anymore, at least among the scientific community. And at one time, back in the 60s, even the 50s, I think that the phenomena was looked at seriously by real scientists. You had J. Allen Hynek, and you had some of these people who were credentialed astrophysics and scientists who were taking this stuff seriously. And those people have all gone away now. They've either passed on or they have gone off to do something else where it's, they're not going to get ridiculed.
Yeah.
And it's all because of that tendency to want to sensationalize things and turn it into a business.
Another thing that I see is a big big problem within the UFO community is nobody wants to share information. Everybody wants to keep their finds to themselves, hoping that they will be the one to discover the smoking gun instead of sharing the information and doing it as a group instead of individually.
Yeah, I see that a lot where you don't have a lot of information going back and forth. People are fairly cautious about sharing things. I think some of it's because they're a little paranoid. They think someone's going to investigate them. Maybe you're with the government. Maybe you're part of the cover-up.
Yeah.
That kind of a thing. So if I give you my information, what are you going to do with it? And and it's a paranoid community sometimes.
Sometimes. Huh. You see, I believe that the conspiracy theory isn't, or the conspirators are not the government. They are not the Men in Black. They are not the Vatican. They are not the church. I believe the conspiracy is kept alive and maintained by the UFO community. Because as long as this conspiracy is in place, Jeff, they don't have to provide any evidence. They don't have to provide any proof. They just say, well, I can't prove it to you because of this government conspiracy, the cover-up. And I think this is a big problem that they have to overcome as well. Take responsibility for their actions.
I completely agree.
Jeff, you and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue here in the X-Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. You can listen to the X-Zone 724 365 at xzoneradiotv.com. Don't go away. Exonation, Jeff Allan Danelek is our special guest. His website is ourcuriousworld.com. First of all, old friend, thanks so much for coming on. It's always a great pleasure talking to you. Continued success with your great books. And
Thank you.
I have to ask you, is there a time limit for ghosts before they go on, or are they just always around? And if so, how come nobody's ever seen a ghost of a caveman?
Well, I believe personally that ghosts, the personality fades, kind of like leaving your flashlight on.
Okay.
Eventually, that battery fades over time.
Right.
With the ghost, I think it can last for quite a while, including up to several centuries, although those are uncommon. But I do believe eventually the soul essentially moves back into the spiritual realm. Sometimes it's helped by entities outside. Other times it just gets tired or it moves on. The house is demolished, whatever it is that causes it to move on, and it says, I no longer feel like I want to be here, and
right.
Off they go. But that's why you don't see caveman ghosts very often, because they're just a little bit too old to hang around.
So why aren't there modern day ghosts then? Why is it always an old soldier or a soldier? Somebody dies 2 years ago. How come they don't haunt?
Well, actually, they do. I have a number of instances. I've been given photographs of people that passed within a few months. And so the idea that there aren't new ghosts is just not true. There are actually new ghosts. Now,
but who sees
the problem
those?
Is a lot of.
But who sees those current ghosts? Is it people that know the person, or are they strangers?
More often than not, it's people who know them. Because if you think about it, when you pass, where do you want to go first? Usually you want to let your loved one know that you're okay, everything's all right. But you got to remember, most of these haunted houses, these places that are haunted, it takes decades for them to get that reputation. So by the time that you're investigating it, it may have been haunted for 30, 40, 50 years.
Yeah, and there's
So
a lot
these
of
are gonna be older ghosts.
there's a lot of black mold, and black mold sends out spores that are hallucinogenic.
Yeah, it could be that too. It could be either way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think that there's more of the ghosts that I've encountered in terms of stories have been fairly modern ghosts that people often even knew who it was, and that's actually one of the most common types of hauntings.
But couldn't that not be the desire to see the one who passed, and it could only be a figment of the person's imagination?
Oh, absolutely. You got to take that into account. You got to look at that person and see, are they prone towards that sort of thing, or were they completely taken off guard? Were they even frightened by it?
Yeah.
Because that's also something to take into account. But you're right. If someone wants to see their loved one bad enough, sure, they can conjure that up.
Yeah.
But what about the person who didn't care about it or wasn't that close to him, and they suddenly see this person and say, whoa, I know this guy, I know this gal, and they weren't expecting it, weren't looking for it, and it just shows up.
Could be all subliminal.
Well, I suppose, but I would want to know what is the mechanism behind it. Why did they think of that person? Or actually, they weren't even thinking of that person when they saw them. They just suddenly showed up and said, hey, that's my uncle who died, a year ago. And I wasn't thinking about him.
They may not have been thinking about them consciously, but there could have been something that triggered a memory.
Well, I suppose that's possible. I'm open to seeing any dead people who want to show themselves to me, and I haven't had much luck yet, so maybe it just doesn't work for everybody.
Hey, Jeff, take care of yourself, my friend. Look forward to the next time you join us here in the Arizona. But until then, happy Halloween.
Yeah, you too, sir, and you have a great weekend, and just want to thank all your listeners out there in the Canada Nation, and look forward to doing this again.
All right, buddy, take care. X-Zone Nation, Jeff Danelek, www.ourcuriousworld.com. We'll be back after this news break. Don't go away.